Short questions, short answers by Torah teacher Ariel and eBible. As I mentioned, they provide the questions and I provide the answers. So let's look at our question for tonight. The question is, why did God choose Israel to be his chosen people? All right. Before I get started with tonight's study, I just want to make you aware of some links and some other videos that you're going to find helpful. I have a video called What Does the Bible Mean When It Refers to a Remnant that there's a link to on the screen right now, upper right corner. Click that link to watch my teaching on the remnant. It will also help you identify with this particular study. And there's another video that I've uploaded to YouTube called Are Israel and the Church the Same Thing? Does God Still Have a Plan for Israel? Again, the link is in the upper right corner of the video that you're watching right now. Click that link and watch that video. There's a humorous saying that goes, how odd of God to choose the Jews. The complexity of one's answer to this seemingly simple question depends on their definition of who they believe Israel to be. The entity known as chosen Israel is a complex biblical concept portrayed in the Bible as existing on at least two levels per Romans 9, 6 through 8. And therefore, the question as to why God chose them deserves a detailed, hopefully not confusing answer. In contemplating the magnitude of the mystery of why God chose Israel as his representatives, we affirm that despite Israel's ups and downs, her position as God's chosen reveals the perfect plans of the Father for all to behold. Go back and read Romans 11, 33 through 36, and you'll see this. Thus, despite Israel's imperfections in the end, the Bible promises that all Israel will be saved, quote unquote. That's per Romans 11, 25 through 27. I don't know exactly what that means and what that entails, but that's what God says. So, two levels of Israel. In order to understand the successes, failures, and responsibilities commensurate with being chosen according to God's good pleasure, per Philippians 2:13, one needs to understand that chosen Israel exists on two levels. All right, what are these two levels? National Israel and Remnant Israel. And we've got Gentile Christians as wild olive branches being grafted not into National Israel per se, but into Remnant Israel alongside the Messianic Jews. Go back and read Romans 11, 17 through 24. So I think this is going to go a long way towards helping us understand this question. Let me describe this picture that you're seeing. We've got a big blue circle on the left called National Israel. We've got a red circle on the right called Gentile nations. And when we overlap them, there's a slice in the middle that's called Remnant Israel that is known as the church. For Paul, the ecclesia, the church, existed within Israel, not outside of Israel. All right, that's our background. Let's look at Paul's olive tree. Remnant Israel and National Israel both exist on one single olive tree, and they're both nourished by the roots of the patriarchs per Romans 11, 17, and 18. So we got National Israel, and we got Remnant Israel being a smaller part of National Israel, and it's faith in Yeshua that grafts you in if you're national, someone from the Gentiles. God doesn't have two brides, people. God has not rejected his bride, National Israel. Read Romans 11. He is able to graft unsaved branches back in if they do not persist in unbelief. Read Romans 11, 23 and 24. So let's look at these two levels a little more closely. The bride of God is National Israel. Chosen National Israel is unsaved Israel. They're the bride, but they're unsaved. Their covenant membership / righteousness is rooted in law ethnicity, and it's limited and temporal, unfortunately. Their covenant membership is limited and temporal. And I've got a lot of verses from Romans that you need to look up here. Chosen national unsaved Israel is circumcised in flesh only per Romans and Galatians. So go back and look up all these verses so that you can understand the scope of chosen national yet unfortunately unsaved Israel. These bullet points are going to match one another. There's about 9 bullet points for each level of Israel. Let's keep looking at chosen national unsaved Israel. They are children of the flesh. They stem from Mount Sinai and earthly Jerusalem, per Galatians chapter 4. Their Torah observance is done by the flesh, and it receives praise from men, per Romans and Matthew and some other passages. And unfortunately, they are under bondage / condemnation, ultimately. Not maybe like in the immediate scope, but ultimately they are. And then lastly, chosen national unsaved Israel, their priesthood is rooted in Aaron per Exodus and Hebrews, and they receive temporal atonement and ritual purification of the flesh only per the book of Leviticus as well as the book of Hebrews. So these are some of the characteristics of chosen unsaved national Israel. Now let's look at chosen remnant saved Israel. Same bullet points, just looking at their perspective. They are the bride of Christ per 2 Corinthians and Revelation. They have covenant membership / righteousness that's rooted in faith, and it's genuine and lasting, right? It carries on into the world to come. Lots of verses to look up there. Also, their circumcision is in the flesh and in heart. Right? It's both. It's in the flesh and in the heart, particularly if you are a natural-born Israelite. It's of the flesh as well. Look at their status as children. They're children of the promise as opposed to children of the flesh per Romans. They have a heavenly Jerusalem that they have inherited per Galatians chapter 4. And their following of God's commandments is done by the Spirit and receives praise from God per Romans. Also, they are no longer under bondage or condemnation. Again, look up Romans and Galatians. Their priesthood is rooted in Melchizedek or / Yeshua per the book of Hebrews. And then they receive lasting atonement and spiritual purification of the conscience, again, per the book of Hebrews. So that's remnant spiritual Israel. What are the conclusions that we can make from looking at these details? 2 levels of Israel, national and remnant. If we combine what we just listed about national Israel and remnant Israel, we can outline these brief points about God's choosing of Israel and exactly why he chose them. Here they are, bullet points. They were chosen to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, per Exodus and 1 Peter. They were chosen to showcase God's nearness to his people and his righteous Torah to the world. Read Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 5 through 9. And they were chosen to safeguard the oracles of God. Read Romans chapter 3, verse 2. They were chosen to be his firstborn son, Exodus 4:22. They were chosen to be his bride. Read Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. They were chosen to bring the Messiah into the world. Read Matthew and Galatians. And they were chosen because he first loved her. Read Deuteronomy and Ephesians as well. So lots of scriptural reasons that we could figure out as to why God chose Israel. So let's look at that slide one more time. Paul's olive tree theology. Remnant and national Israel both exist on one olive tree, and they're both nourished by the roots of the patriarchs. That's Romans 11:17 through 18. There's a big part of the top of the tree where the branches exist that's largely given over to national Israel, and there's a smaller circle that's purple that represents remnant Israel. They're still on the same tree, right? And you get grafted in by faith in Messiah. Check out my podcasts, which are available on iTunes. You can search for me in the store under the search term Ariel Hanavi. But if you prefer to watch your theology, check out my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and click the bell for notifications. New content is added weekly or even daily.